Begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
Recording in progress.
Of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So the next thing would be approval of tonight's agenda, but we do have one change, which is that item number 1 has been removed from tonight's agenda. So the continued discussion decision regarding the letter of support for Trinidad Rancheria Raise Grant for the 101 Trinidad Area Access Improvement Project has been removed. The Rancheria decided to withdraw their request for a letter of support from the city of Trinidad, primarily because the date had passed for submission. As you may recall, in our last meeting, we kind of got hurt with the horse a little. We wanted to attend the February 20th meeting, but the deadline for submission of the letter was before that. So those of you that are, we would love to have you stay, but if you were here for that item, we're going to remove that tonight. So with that, I will have the council ask any questions about the agenda and then go to public comments so you can ask questions and make comments. Any comments about tonight's agenda?
Nope.
All right, let me open to public comments. And for those you just joining online or in the room, we are removing item number 1 from tonight's agenda. Are there any questions or comments about the agenda for tonight? All right. Seeing none, I will bring it back to the council.
I move to approve tonight's agenda, striking item number 1.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, with that, then we'll move on to, I believe the minutes that we have are from January 9th, 2024. Are there any questions from the council or comments on those? Okay, I have none either. Pardon me. Really got to kill these things before they. I apologize. Are there any public comments regarding the minutes from the January 9th meeting? Okay, then back to the council. Is there a move to?
I'll move to accept the minutes.
Okay, I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so the minutes from January 9th are approved.
Technically, I should abstain since I wasn't there.
Okay. So glad we abstains. Okay, so next up are council reports. I guess I'll start at that end. So. I don't know anything. Okay, Councilor Love.
Nothing to report from Humboldt Transit Authority or Redwood Region Economic Development, but I did attend the coastal resiliency presentation. And I just want to encourage folks, there's one more chance for the public to weigh in on the plan that will be developed. And that will happen sometime in June. So the turnout was relatively small, but very engaged discussion that we had here last week. So really want to encourage folks to attend the one, look for that announcement. You can access the schedule for that from the Trinidad City website about when that next meeting will be, and encourage folks to attend. Thanks much.
Nothing to report. Okay, I'm gonna pass. I have some things, but then I want.
Okay, I have a couple of things to report on. First of all, we're going to have our first trail meeting of the year on the 19th, next Tuesday at 5 o'clock. And we'll be held here along with a Zoom. We'll have Zoom, of course, with us. We're going to be discussing looking at potential trail markers, and hopefully we can get some movement towards getting some things done fairly soon. So if you'd like to attend, that would be nice. We had a discussion about upgrading the town hall, which has been a big issue for quite a while. So we've taken steps to look at some of the various parts of the town hall and see where we could get started and where we can make this a little better. So we can find our funding, and yes, we will get some ideas going, and we'll be presenting some and seeing if we can get the town hall spruced up again. Anything to add?
No, I think he covered it. Yeah, I'm excited that we're getting started.
I think this is pretty exciting, right?
Excuse me, I have a question. Though. Is there any information about the Axel Lindgren Trail? Or is that going to come later?
Yeah, I can mention regarding that. So we've had a few meetings and working with originally with the Coastal Commission as well as the Chari Ancestral Society, Coastal Conservancy, and Yurok Tribe, because they're Chari management team. So basically, it will be open this summer. The target is by July. So that's what we have.
And I just have a couple of things. The cert I'm going to cover for Larry Goldberg as I think the first agenda, now the second agenda, but now first. And I think I did want to mention, again, I think this would qualify as an ex parte discussion. I'm not 100% sure, but there has been an email thread, including HARP, regarding the HARP group, regarding loading and unloading zone at the harbor for kayakers. And the issue was brought to light by Jason Saul from Kayak Trinidad. And unfortunately, Jason and I haven't discussed this live. It's all been via email and some voicemail, but I did speak to, and this is down, I think I mentioned at the harbor. So this would be a loading and unloading zone for Launcher Beach. And I just wanted to let everyone know that I spoke to Jackie Hostler-Carmison, the CEO of the Rancheria, a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, I don't think Jackie's attending tonight, but I think she'd be fine with this statement. So the tribal council, she said, is amenable to putting signage in the harbor for loading and unloading, and always has been. That has been their plan, but they want to finish the Memorial Lighthouse and the stormwater projects and possibly some of the cultural center work, and then do an overall signage revamp. So they're going to redo all the signs down there at the same time. So that's their preference. I think that we can still have some, continue to have some discussions about that. And they definitely want to know if anyone else has any issues. And also in the meantime, the Rancheria has said that anyone parking in the loading and unloading zone, and unfortunately it says no parking, but it's the one right by Launcher Beach, they're not enforcing it unless people stay there for a long time. If it's a 15, 20 minutes, 30-minute drop off, load, unload, she's asked staff to allow that. So that's kind of a stopgap measure. And I just want to let everybody know, because that, came through email, and if it ever came before the council, I wanted to be above board about that conversation. Okay, Water Advisory Council or Committee, we met on March 5th, deep discussion, so I'm not going to try to recap the whole thing. I think Eli's going to cover a number of things in his staff report, but I did want to say that the number one item was the water rate study, and we had planned to go in depth on that, but we didn't have it ready yet. So we're going to be discussing it at the city council level, most likely, I guess, Gabe, April, May for the water rate study in that time frame. We did talk quite a lot about water plant staffing. This has been an ongoing concern for folks because we've had the contractor there. It's been expensive. Everyone's aware of that. We did spend quite a bit of time talking about the fact that we have staff today, a T2 working towards a T3, and we have 2 folks who are working towards T2 certification. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's just the certification levels we need to run the plant, like a T3 to run the plant. So we did discuss perhaps the city thinking about recruiting a professional full-time T3 certified plant manager or plant operator, and being willing to possibly pay relocation, because we have not been able to find many folks in Northern California. So that was really a lot of the discussion. We talked about the raw water storage, which I think Eli is going to update us on. There was a citizen who was quite concerned about the Pacific watershed bill that we received last year for $29,000. there was about 6,000 in there for site visits to the plant, and the citizen, the community member felt that that was quite expensive for 4 visits to the plant. So staff's going to look into that. So, and one of the reasons I'm going into detail about what is because I was asked to do this. So by folks that attended the meeting, because they feel like Water Advisory Committee is not quite as well attended as the city council meeting. So, but I'll try to keep it succinct. I think the last thing was just overall the financial considerations of having a city-run water plant versus hooking up to Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District, which has been discussed at the council and passed, probably 2.5 years ago. So the Water Advisory Committee is not bringing that back to the council at this time, but did feel that we needed to look at a lot of different kind of water sourcing from a different perspective in addition to financial. We also needed to look at it from the standpoint of, firefighting, staffing, and then also now there are state pressures that are being put upon smaller water districts to consolidate. So it was quite a deep discussion, and I hope I covered most of what folks wanted me to report out. But as I say, Eli will say, a few things, and then if there are questions, we can take those. I think I'm gonna.
May I ask a question
Yes.
as a councilman? At the Water Advisory Committee, was there any discussion of doing a study about whether having our own water department is really the best way to go?
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the crux of what we were trying to get to with that 4th item, with this sort of financial comparison, but also looking at it from a safety and, efficiency and, just in staffing and all of those things. But the Water Advisory Committee didn't feel comfortable with bringing it to the council just yet. There would probably be an ask for money to fund a study. And then also because it was brought to the council and kind of voted down 2.5 years ago, the committee didn't feel like, I guess Jack Tuttle should comment as well if you agree that that's kind of what you heard in the meeting.
Right.
Yeah. Does that sound about right? Okay. I don't know if that helps. I know I think we just wanted to talk about it a little bit more before we made a decision one way or the other.
Well, it being new to the city, it seemed like I heard right away and repeatedly people on the street talking about the water wars, as they're called. And perhaps it is best to wait, but how long is waiting for the Water Advisory Committee to make a recommendation about whether there should be a study on this?
I think we can make a decision in the next meeting. I don't have it scheduled yet, but we're supposed to meet monthly. But I think the Water Advisory Committee can make a decision at that point whether they want to bring it back to the council. And then the council can also decide, like anybody in the council can make a motion or request that as an agenda item, in the future topics section. So if one of you wants to bring that to the council, we don't need the Water Advisory Committee
to make a discussion
That's
item
right.
for
Right, they can
about such a
support
study.
but yes. So if you decide that you want to do that, you can definitely do that. Right, I think that's it for me on the update. So we'll go to the staff report. Or do I stop? I think I can stop and see if let me stop and see if there are any public comments or questions about any of the things the council has reported. Yes, would you mind coming to the podium?
I'm
Otherwise, I can't hear you on
I'm
that.
just responding to the water. So is that too long? Does that mean we will be getting Arcata water if you join up with the Humboldt Municipal Water?
We are not at this point deciding, at this point, we are continuing to run our own water plant. The discussion was whether we should ever look at hooking up to Humboldt Bay, but then yes, if we did hook up to Humboldt Bay, it would be the same as where Arcata gets that.
And is that the water that comes from the Mad River then that we will be getting? Because I guess I know there's an old mill site above the treatment, above the pump station, and that's kind of concerned. I hope we don't get that water. That's my comment.
Thank you for your comment. Right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and go to the staff report then. Eli, you're up.
Okay. So the staff report in the packet, first of all, mentions that the water tank and pipeline project is scheduled to commence on this coming Monday, March the 18th. Mercer Fraser Company was the low bidder. They will be starting on Edward Street because we will be replacing some of the pipelines on Edwards. After that, they'll shift over to West Haven Drive, where we will be placing pipelines between the water plant and the water tanks. Later on, towards the end of summer, or sometime in the summer, putting in a new 250,000 gallon stainless steel water tank and placing the older redwood tanks, which was 150 or is 150 gallons. Then this coming Tuesday, March 19th at 2 p.m. and 6 p.m., the California Public Utilities Commission will be having a public forum for input regarding the request by AT&T to be relieved of the obligation to provide landline telephone service throughout California, which would include Trinidad also. They're just asking for the permission to be able to be relieved of that obligation. So we're not sure which areas they will decide to discontinue the landlines. In Humboldt County, there is also Frontier Communications and Citizens phone company that provides service in other parts of the county. And specifically, Oric is serviced by Frontier. So hopefully, if we do end up losing AT&T, we could get maybe Frontier to provide service. Also, Ferndale is provided by Frontier in the county. But either way, we like to hear what the public has to say if they really cherish their landlines. In addition to that, our water plant relies on the landlines. So we would like to continue that. And then also a lot of the alarm systems that people may have usually are tied to the landlines. And cell service can be spotty. And as a result, the landline might in that respect. So if anyone is interested in joining in that virtual meeting, public forum, March 19th at 2 p.m. and also 6 p.m. And it's on the website of the California Public Utility. And the staff report also mentioned is regarding traffic calming. Josh Wolf is unable to attend the meeting tonight, but he did indicate, and Katie had asked at the last meeting if we could give an update. So a couple of things that the council had asked for were number one, traffic counts, specifically for Ocean and View. And the cost for those counts will be around $5,000 through a subcontractor. Also, Ocean and View striping and signage. GHD looked at the cost. It was going to be closer to $33,000, but then because there is an HSIP project that we're working on with Caltrans during the summer, it could reduce the cost to $21,000. So it would be a savings of about $12,000 to do the striping and signage and to try to slow down the traffic by having striping that would be similar to speed humps.
Excuse me, Elon.
Yes.
Going back to the count on Ocean and View,
Right.
could you remind me to what end that's being done? What's the point? What will a count give us?
Oh, okay. Well, the count will show the traffic at different times when the school is in session, when the school's not in session, and then basically to help determine what other measures may be necessary to calm traffic down. And then the last one under traffic calming is radar speed signs. The council had asked for further information on that. We were able to find 3 radar speed signs at a cost of $9,000 through one company. GHD said that the city of Eureka uses safe pace radar speed signs, and they were going to get us an estimate, but we hadn't received it before the council meeting. Trinidad will be having their yard sale on Saturday, June the 8th. Also, the city has received a $75,000 grant from Cal Recycle to reduce organic waste and establish an edible food recovery program. And we're working with the other cities and the county in that effort. So those funds will go towards that. Also, between March 16th and 22nd, a film will be they will be filming for a documentary about the loss of Hunter Lewis, who was lost at sea while canoeing off of the Trinidad coast in December 2021. It's done through Chapman University Student Film Project. And it'll be basically around the harbor area and the State Beach area. And then the water plant operating costs. At our Water Advisory Committee, some questions were asked about the overall cost, so I've included that in the report here. So first of all, we indicated that we're doing a water rate study. Fortunately, we were able to get that for free for the city. It's done through RCAC. Dave and I are going to be meeting again this coming Monday with the person who is working on it. Once the rate study is complete, it will give us a better idea of where our rates currently stand. So they're due to be increased because we haven't increased them for almost 6 years, since 2018. So Coleman Engineering is providing our chief plant operator services at the plant. One of the questions was, what was the last Coleman Engineering invoice? And that was in January 2024, and that's $7,632.
February yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah. So we haven't received February yet. Also, the current weekly cost for city water staff and Coleman combined is about $2,185. And then Coleman Engineering started with the city in October 2021. And since then, we've paid them $670,865 over a period of 2 years and 3 months.
Wow.
And then in addition to that, I have.
Are you leaving the water?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because I have a question.
Right. So went ahead and figured out approximately what the cost would be with a T3 and T2 operator. And that would be about $151,840 per year for the city. Times 2 1/3 years equals a total of $354,242. Compared to what we had paid Coleman, which was $670,864. And then it's basically the remainder is $316,622 that we would be utilizing from the reserves. And then the estimated That was all in the report. And then the water reserve funds, the question was asked, how much do we have? So we haven't completed the audit to get a firm handle on that. But as we're going through the water rate study, we will be getting a better idea of how much is left in the reserves. The water reserves are generally intended for capital improvement projects for the plant. Fortunately, we've been able to get a number of grants which have provided quite a few millions of dollars. We have is for 5 million. And then we have another one for 2 million, which is creating an intertie with the West Haven Community Services District. So those have basically taken the load of what normally the capital improvement plan and the capital improvement reserves would be used for. So as a result, some of those reserves since 2018 have been going towards operating the water plant. So including Coleman, et cetera.
Excuse me, Eli. So you don't know the balance of the emergency water fund because the audit hasn't been done?
Well, the audit will clarify it exactly, but like I said, we're doing our water rate study. And in the water rate study, we'll get a better handle on that. So when we get a better handle on that, I can share it at an upcoming meeting.
Do we have any estimate? I mean, have we got $5 or 500 or what have we got?
Well, all I know for sure, because I like to give actual numbers, Gabe has estimated something, but basically I looked at the last water reserves that we had in an audit, and it showed 1,170,000. Then what I did is I subtracted how much we have spent extra in plant operation beyond what we normally would from Coleman. So that was a total of 316,622. So that leaves a balance of 850,000. So basically, once we factor Coleman out, I'm showing 850,000. Now, beyond that, Gabe and I know that we've been spending quite a bit on plant operations in general since 2018. So that number has gone down beyond there, but we don't know exactly what it is. I know Gabe was saying at least we have a couple 100,000, but beyond that, it's hard to tell until we have the audit. And then also, like I said, through the water rate study, maybe we'll get some better.
And when will we have the audit?
The audit will be hopefully in the next few months. So as soon as I get a date for that, I'll let you know.
I think this is something that needs to come to the council again, specifically the water capital improvement reserve, which was 1.17 million, was not a necessary. I mean, it was a. You could call it that's what we're referring to as the emergency water fund, and we're using it as that. And that's great, but I just want to make sure that everybody knows that that's called a water capital improvement reserve. It is capital improvement, so it's capital expense or CapEx, and we have been using it as OpEx. So we've been using it as operating expense for the plant which is not commonly accepted accounting practices unless the city council votes to redirect that money from the capital expense to spend it for operating expense. And we probably would have, but we need to formalize that and vote on that. So I'm going to ask that be put on the agenda in the next month or two, just so that we can get our ducks in a row. And maybe at the same time, we do need to get, I think we do need to get some auditing, some clear numbers here on exactly how much we've spent, because it's not just Coleman. We're running a deficit, and I don't want to spend too much more time on this because I think we're getting close to an agenda item, but we are the reason we're doing the water rate study is because we are operating that plant at a deficit. we're not charging customers enough to cover the water expense for the last, several years. So the combination of those two things and just expensive, I mean, relatively speaking. And we need to. Okay, so that's, any other questions for Eli on that before I? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so other than that, Gabe put together the staff report supplemental regarding water loss, and the good news is in February, our water loss was 11.33%, which is about the lowest that I could remember. So that's a good sign. Also, Measure Z funding for this 24-25 year. The county received 23 applications from 17 agencies, and one of them is the city of Trinidad. The total request throughout the county was 6,319,000, and there's currently 4,131,000 available. I will be attending a meeting this coming Thursday at the Board of Supervisors with the Measure Z committee to see what they're planning on doing, different requests. The city requested approximately 90,000 to help supplement our enforcement. Also, Lieutenant McCall from the Sheriff's Office normally would join us today, but he was unavailable. So he sent a little blurb here to Gabe and then to me saying he's unable to attend the meeting. First, he said, I asked, or Gabe says that he asked about the animal control contract status, and Sergeant Quinnell is going to get back with us as far as the current status of it. We signed the contract with the county October 23rd. We never received the signed copy from the county. Secondly, he had no update regarding Mark Brodell and the dog Claudia. He said that the Eureka Police Department is handling the investigation, and his sending out a deputy today to place a yellow warning tag on a white van that was reported parked for a number of hours, way beyond our 72-hour. That's about it that I have.
Any questions for Eli? Okay, any public comments or questions about the staff report, please come on up. You guys can take turns, and then we don't see anyone online yet, so.
It's here, so I just was kind of confused about the water thing, and I would highly encourage you to get an audit done, because there's one figure that says $670,000 was spent. 1.1 minus 670 comes around roughly 500 left, not $800,000. It's confusing. $313,000 above and beyond paid to Coleman, but that was their impact. So is that added to the $670,000? Is that coming out of the reserves? It's not clear how these numbers are jiving.
Yeah, I think that might have been confusing, because I think it probably the simplest math is that there was 1.17, Coleman was 670,000, so that does get deducted from that, Tom. And then there's also additional expense that we're running at a deficit.
Yeah.
And so that's the part, that latter part, I think, and Eli, you can comment.
Yeah, I do want to clarify, since I'm the one who made the statements.
Okay.
We have paid Coleman for the last 2 years and 4 months, $670,864. I went ahead and I totaled how much, if they weren't here, how much we'd be paying the T3, which we had a T3 that was very but we had to let go because he didn't work out for us. And then the cost of the T2. Together, that was $151,000 per year. For a total for 2 1/3 years, it would be $354,242. So that's if we did not have Coleman, we would have spent over that period of time $354,000 instead of the $670,000. So I took the 670, subtracted the 354, which left 316,622 that we paid more than we should have if we had our own people in place.
Yeah, so I think you were doing a comparison of
Right.
what if
Exactly.
scenario.
Yeah.
What I thought Tom might be asking is what we actually spent, right? So that the as opposed to the comparison of if we didn't have Coleman, we would have spent that much money.
Right. Yeah, I based it on the two people that we had working at the plant. So we did have for a period of 6 months, we had one T3 and we had the T2. And if they worked for the whole year, it would have been 151,000. So it's only logical to take, what we would have paid for those two employees and subtract it from what it ended up costing us with Coleman. So that's why I felt that the 316,000 was a definite number that could be subtracted from the current, or at least the last reserve.
So
I think
And just to add that money, Tom, I think what this might help is that consider the money that is being spent on city employees as coming from the water bills every month, so that the city has revenue for that to cover that.
Yeah.
Right. So that, I think that may be the piece that might be missing.
yeah, I understand. That's a good point. And 'cause it looks like this Coleman place, they're running over $200 an hour. You look at the figures that you have written down here.
Yeah, the exact cost is $126 per hour. And let me see, I've got in there, I believe, so 38 billable hours over the whole month of January. So when you figure there's 40 hours a week, that could have been up to 160 hours, but 38 hours were billable for the. And 31 days were remote on-call hours. Those remote hours, they charge us $70 for the whole day. So whatever he is doing, our chief plant operator from the Sacramento area during that whole day is only charging us $70 for that particular day.
Even if you don't call them.
Well, yeah, I mean, technically you could say that, but his on the computer doing the SCADA system and the team viewer and his operating the plant, especially when our operators aren't there because they're there in the morning. So then throughout the day and even into the early morning hours, a lot of times when the power goes out, then the plant goes out and then he responds to that.
Okay. And then my other comment was maybe more of a question. You've been doing a water rate study. And I'm concerned that this anomaly that we've had over the last 3 years is going to be incorporated into this rate study, and this new rate structure is going to be based upon 670,000 or 400,000, whatever you decide we've spent on this contracted person entity. And that's going to be how our rate structure goes forward. We're not going to be spending, hopefully, that much money on the water plant to begin with. So when you guys are having that discussion, I really hope that is a question that is asked and answered very thoroughly, because that would impact the citizens of this town greatly if that's rolled into, you got $500,000 here, or, like they say, $1,000 here and $1,000 there. It starts to add up to real money after a while.
Yeah, that's coming quite a bit at the water advisory.
We inflated.
Yeah, we should definitely talk about it.
And my last thing is it says we have developed a design for striping and signage on Ocean and View. Is there a place that we could actually see this design for that? It may have been on a past packet and I missed it, or like signage that might say local traffic only, or, things that passively deter people from using the street.
Yeah, it was at a couple prior meetings
Okay.
and we had it, but yeah, we could get that for you.
So if it's in another packet,
Yeah.
I can locate that myself, but
So I don't know if either
you don't want to
Dave or
spend
Anton,
time.
one of us will tell you what meeting that was. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Other comments? Yes, please.
I just would like to take this opportunity to pipe up about the water rate difference between the people right in town and the people that live on the outskirts. If those were the same, you could automatically bring in so much more money or a good chunk of money. And I just don't understand why our rates are more than downtown. And we're not allowed to vote on the issue. So thank you for listening to my comment. Also, I wanted to respond. Where were you thinking of putting local traffic only signs? Is that something that's, anyway, is that happening in Trinidad?
No, is it? I don't remember.
So you're asking about the traffic calming?
Oh, and I.
Yeah.
What street?
Okay.
Anyway, thank you for
All right,
listening.
we'll try to answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
Do we know if that's in the plan currently, Eli, a local traffic only sign? I know we discussed a lot of different options in that last traffic calming meeting. Do you know offhand?
Yeah, no, that's not part of it. It's just the stuff that I talked about.
Plan of record
Right.
so far.
Yeah, I mean, that could be in the future, but that's not currently.
We still able to comment on the telephone service?
Yes.
I just recently heard this evening that they were saying the Frontier is considerably less reliable than the AT&T service. And that AT&T is receiving a lot of money to subsidies to have this service, so they're really obligated. And I think people weighing in about that we really need it. And I heard one of the sheriffs saying that it's really crucial for the sheriffs because there's so many people that only get service through AT&T now because cell service is so spotty, especially with 5G. I myself consider getting a landline again because my service is so unreliable. And also the sheriff was making the point about older people and how they're always doing welfare calls because people don't have good service, and then older people can't make calls and people can't get a hold of them, so then their sheriffs are being sent out and spending extra money and time checking on people that could have just been called, but their phones aren't working now with the bad cell service. So maybe some of those people can, I guess, to a landline. So these are some of the things that I consider.
Yeah, so ideally on the 19th, if you participate either at 2 or 6 with the CPUC, because that's the kind of input they're looking for. If they end up allowing AT&T to no longer be the carrier of last resort, then we could end up with 0 landlines. So hopefully we can have AT&T remain, and if not, at least provide some substitute rather than just leaving a void.
Okay, yeah, and I think that during the emergencies, say big winds and knocks out the service, it can take days for us to get service back. And then maybe we don't actually have one, but maybe there's a neighbor down the street that has one. We can, go use it if we have an emergency. So anyway, I think it's good to consider.
And real quick, are you aware of the Public Utilities Commission's website to put comments in regarding this?
No.
Do you want this? I've got like 20 copies.
I'm not able to attend the 19th, so we have a place to do it in writing. I encourage folks to do that in writing.
Other public comments regarding the staff report? Okay, well, with that.
This is Ted Pease. I've got one from out here in the hinterland, if you have a moment.
Yes. Go ahead, Ted.
Good evening, guys. 3 things. One, I'm appalled at the water bill. I'm a water customer, and this has just been horrifying. That's just a comment. Number two, I totally agree with the last comment about AT&T. It is unconscionable that the state would permit rural areas, and particularly people of lower income and who are more remote, to be cut off from communications in the communication age. That seems stupid. And then number three, this may not be the time because you may be talking about this later, but I do have a report on the dog attack and Mark Brodell, if you want it now or later.
Go ahead, Ted. Go ahead and give us an update now.
Yeah, here's the update. As you know, Mark Brodell's dog attacked another person in Eureka on January 28th. His name is Pablo King. This is a guy who's a boxer, and the dog leapt at him 6 different times before he ripped Pablo's face off, literally. And Pablo was airlifted to UC Davis because Providence couldn't take care of him. His injuries were too bad. On, I want to say Thursday, there was a hearing at Eureka Police Department on the dog. Brodell, of course, did not show up. They don't know where he is. And the dog now, if they find her, Claudia, will be euthanized, will be delivered to the animal shelter and be euthanized. Mark Brodell is in the wind somewhere. It is believed that he is back in Southern California. No one knows where the dog is. So that's the update on that. EPD is on it, and one assumes that the Humboldt County Sheriff's Department is doing something, although they haven't so far. And that's the update. This is the second time in almost exactly a year that this dog has attacked somebody that we know of. It could be somebody else in the meantime. But it's just horrifying that nobody has, or that law enforcement has not managed to chase Brodell down and make him accountable and take care of this dog. That's where we are. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions from the council? It's a really bad situation. Thanks for the update though, Ted.
Yeah, it's just stupid.
Okay, we'll continue with items from the floor. So this is comments about things that are not on tonight's agenda. So up to 3 minutes if you have some things you want to bring to the council. It's a race.
This is a museum comment. Our Vice President Scott Baker had an idea at our board meeting last night about a Trinidad time capsule, and that he thought rather than have it a museum project, that it should be a community-wide project. So the idea is to have input, and I don't know if this would be an appropriate agenda item at some stage, but it would be a size of the capsule, where it would be buried, for how long, 50, 100 years. And there are lots of things to commemorate and celebrate or recognize, but I was thinking next year is on June 9th, 2025 is the 250th year of the naming of Trinidad by the Spanish, their Spanish landing. And then, of course, the following year, 2026, it would be the 250th anniversary of our country's Declaration of Independence. Possibly something associated with a big event like that, or doesn't have to be big. And it'd be just wonderful to have the different community organizations and our town residents in and outside of town, and the tribes would be great if there was just an involvement in making a time capsule that should include the city council and the leaders of our community and organizations and whatnot. So it's just an idea to think about. And if you think it's appropriate to put on an agenda, I could refine it a little better and make a suggestion, but just an idea.
Okay, thank you.
Has the actual maps of
Future topics.
Trinidad
Should be agendized.
taking out discussion.
Mayor, council members, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Good going. Okay, thanks. My name is Des Johnston, and I live just outside the city. And there's an item on the calendar that I'm pretty excited about, and it's a Celtic Fair. And first, I will tell you who I am and why the Celtic Fair. So my wife and I came from Merced almost 4 years ago. We followed our two of our children here who went to school here. They liked it. They stayed. We visited a few times. We liked it. We were empty nesters. Here we are. So my wife and I lived just down the road, and we came while there was a pandemic, and we were very quiet and kind of sad, actually. Not much happening here. And I kept thinking about something back home in Sonora that was, I thought, very good for my family, good for my children. That was a Celtic Fair that happened annually for over 30 years now. You know, there's Sonora or Angels Camp, and it's happening again right about now. But I wanted to make that happen here. And so one thing led another, and it's happening here. So I've rented a hall. I got a parking lot across the street. And it's going to be Saturday, May 18th. There'll be 3 bands and 2 duos, small bands, right here on the stage. There will be food vendors in the hall. There will be artisan vendors outside. And there'll be a billy goat king of the fair. And that's something that happens in some villages, Ireland and Scotland. So I have a flyer that you may have. I'll give it to your staff to give it to you. And if you have any questions.
That sounds fantastic. Any questions? Yeah. Any questions about the Celtic Fair from the council? Okay, well, we're just looking forward to it. As an Irish American, I'm very much looking forward to it. Thank you.
Will that be put on the website, or how will that?
Yes, yes, it will. Yes.
My name is Dick Bruce, 780 Underwood Drive. It's not on the agenda tonight, but I've got a couple things on the Rancheria's Access Improvement Interchange Project. One's informational. In February, Caltrans issued a notice of preparation of the draft environmental impact report and sent it to interested parties and agencies, and I believe the city is an interested agency. The public, and this is the informational part of it, must submit comments by March 15th, this Friday, to be considered in the draft EIR process. So I'm encouraging anybody, the public that wants to make a comment on the 2 those alternatives, make their comments to Caltrans by this Friday. My understanding, Cheryl, with you and I have had an email conversation about this. We checked with the planner, and she said that the city could comment at a later date. I just wanted to confirm.
That's what I was told. And yes, we checked with the city planner, and Gabe and I discussed this as well, via email, I should say. And the idea is that, yes, that this is preliminary and that the council or the city can weigh in at a later date, especially if we're a partner in the project. So.
The second part of that is that last year, the Rancheria has held 2 scoping meetings open to the public, most recently February 20th at the casino. The public come to comment at their scoping meetings. My recollection, I could be wrong, is that the city has not sponsored a public forum, town hall meeting, or a special council meeting to discuss the project, engage community sentiment about 2 final alternatives that are being put forward. I'd like to request that the city sponsor and schedule its own public forum and use the results to help frame the city's comments to be submitted to CalFinance at a later date.
Thank you.
Good evening, Richard Johnson, Greater Trinidad area. My comments tonight are related to sales tax. However, they are not necessarily related to item 5 or 4, whichever it is at this point, since that item is primarily procedural in nature rather than the collection or use of sales tax. So I just want to make sure that it's acceptable to the council that I proceed with my comments. Yes. Thank you. Okay, my comments fall into 3 categories, but I'll try to be brief and will remain within my 3-minute allotment. What the public should know. First of all, as a disclosure, I gladly pay the Trinidad tax when I purchase goods and services within the city limits. And many non-city residents, including myself, volunteer their time and energy to support the city in numerous ways. I spent the better part of 2 days in the last week on state websites and multiple phone calls with conversations with various state officials. And this is the result of what I found. It appears that if you purchase goods or services, particularly online, and live outside the city limits, but within the 95570 zip code, and are charged the city tax rate, the state has no way to prevent it from happening. The state does provide various ways to confirm your sales tax rate, but there is no automatic way the correct rate will be applied unless the vendor, particularly online vendor, accesses a state or city database and takes time to verify your address and apply the proper sales tax rate. My personal experience is that some vendors just apply the 9557 rate without going any further to validate addresses. The situation is especially problematic if you cannot speak to a sales representative to have them confirm the proper rate. And even then, there still may be a problem. Personal example, just last week, I ordered a dining room table from a vendor located in the state of California. We were able, fortunately, to talk to the vendor personally, and we asked what sales tax rate was being applied. And the response was, we're applying the Trinidad's city rate. And I said, well, we live outside the city limits. She says, I have no way in my computer setup, my software, to discriminate between the city rate and the county rate. Just goes to show you that vendors are being very lazy. What it means is it's up to the buyer to ensure that vendors apply the correct sales tax rate. And basically the response that I have received from the state, and I hate to say this, but invariably the answer is, yes, this is a problem, but there's not much that we can do about it. So I would suggest a couple of things that we can do collectively. If possible, talk to a sales representative directly to ensure that they are applying the proper sales tax rate. However, there's one caveat to this. That is, if your purchase is delivered to the Trinidad post office, you will be taxed at the city rate because you are taking possession of the article within the city limits. Therefore, it is important to review all sales receipts to understand the tax rate applied and the delivery location. Second, if you are charged the incorrect rate, one of the ways in which you can adjust that is to call your credit card company and request a refund. Final thing that you can do is you can submit a formal complaint against the vendor with the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. And on their website is a place where you can file a formal complaint. There are things, though, I would suggest that the city can do to help local residents. And I'm going to quote directly from the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration website. It says, cities imposing a district tax are encouraged to help retailers. Many cities have boundary lines that are difficult for a retailer to identify to collect a district tax. Because of this, many retailers resort to using zip codes which do not observe city boundary lines. This results in customers who live outside of the city, outside of the city boundaries, but within the city zip code to be overcharged by retailers. Cities wishing to impose a district tax, which is basically what is the differential between the county and the city tax, are strongly urged to establish and maintain a current street listing on their websites for use by retailers. So what I am requesting is that the city help us, all of us, by putting in a very prominent place a street listing database on the city's website that ensures that vendors can quickly verify addresses. It may be there, but I couldn't find it. And it has to be clearly in a prominent place where vendors can look very quickly and understand what tax to charge. I would also...
We will put it.
Thank you. I would also suggest that the city issue a letter to all residents living outside the city limits in 95570 that they can use to submit to vendors to verify the correct tax rate. And then finally, and this is a little controversial, but I'll say it. Sales tax collected from residents living outside of the city limits will not be able to support you. And ultimately, the issue of taxing residents without representation will have to be dealt with. So I guess what I'm saying, as a saying goes, you may soon run out of runway. So thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. And if you, that was really well put. I don't know if you would mind sending us the written version of that. Just some of the things that you learned from the state, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, I have
recommendations. That way we can make sure we follow up.
I actually have a lot of more notes based on my conversations with the state, which you may want to include.
Okay, you may want to reach out. As this maybe
notes, but I don't know if I captured everything.
Excuse me, Richard. I wasn't clear on what running out of runway.
It's just a colloquial saying that you run out of room to make any movement sooner or later. It's like an airplane flying down a runway. And if you don't...
She's wondering what your thinly veiled attempt at coercing the council really means.
Okay, I'll be very candid. I'm sorry I wasn't more direct.
You may want to reach out.
I personally believe that it's extremely important that the city make a high priority for annexation. The reason, of course, is that as it becomes more and more expensive to operate a small city, I mean, we have to do the same thing that a much larger city has to do in terms of complying with state and federal regulations. And yet, we're just a few hundred people.
Yeah.
So the expenses continue to go up. The ability to support, as we all know, committees, subcommittees, ad hoc committees is very difficult with a small population in the city, and even in the outside Greater Trinidad area. I just feel that at some point we really need to look very carefully and quickly, because it takes a very, very long time, as we all know, dealing with LAFCO and the whole process, that I just feel that the city needs to make annexation a much higher priority in the discussion. I hope that's...
And let me just...
Very nice. I thought you meant you were going to dump tea in the bay or something.
Let me just respond with...
no, it's an area of biological significance. That would not be...
I joined FPPC as the city council rep with the intention that this would come to fruition, this discussion. But I won't be in that role after June. So I encourage the city to continue to volunteer to get on yet another organization, but to get on LAFCO on their governing board for this exact reason. So thank you for coming right to it.
Yeah. Yeah, as you were talking, I wrote down annexation. So I think we're on the same page.
Yeah, I know I've taken more than my 3 minutes, but
It was,
I just want to mention very quickly is that as, you know, full disclosure, I'm a member of the Planning Commission. And we in the Planning Commission put together a briefing that Trevor gave us on the annexation process. And if you haven't had a chance to see that in the package, I would suggest that you take a look at it. It's not very long and it's not very deep in terms of all of the procedures, but it does, I think, give you an overall sense that any annexation that the city would want to take on, or even have that discussion with the official organizations necessary to do it, takes years. And so we're already behind the curve, I guess is what I'm saying. So,
Agreed.
Thank you.
all right, thank you. And annexation is a big topic, so we won't go into it here because there's a lot of pros and cons, and there are development plans that need to be developed, et cetera. Please.
The last thing in the world I anticipated saying anything about was the tax thing, but I don't live like right next door to Trinidad, but you should know that anybody in 95570, doesn't matter where they are, gets hit with exactly the same problem that Dick just mentioned. And it happened to me once on purchase of a new vehicle, and that ended up, it was, I think, several $100s at the time. So I had a very laborious fight, to try to get my money back after I realized it. I didn't realize it at first. And I looked at the tax, what the tax is, said that doesn't make sense, and et cetera. But the other thing that is important to recognize is that a whole lot of people are contributing to the Trinidad coffers without knowing it, and they're really not getting any city services back for that. And that's really what's wrong. I found for me, like I just ignore it if it's something little, because I know that the amount of personal hassle to do anything about it it's not going to be worth the time. But it's not right, so like the idea of a list or something, to prevent that and get more retailers to know. And I imagine, this has got to be a national problem. It's not just here. And the government should force retailers to use, especially online people, to have little books so they can look it up. And a few of them do. I think like Land's End, has, do you live within the city limits or not? But that's, very unusual. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to, but I just meant, I don't think we're going to be subject to annexation. That's
It's a problem for you as well. Thank you. Other public comments?
It's possible to request a waiver through the city. I did that when I purchased my car, and they were kind about giving me a paper that was a waiver, so I wouldn't be charged the extra tax. And I gave that to
Now, yeah, and we need to get, communicate that on the website. So,
I think they're done.
Yes. Is there a public comment? Or perhaps someone was just talking to you. Okay. Any public comments online? Just want to make sure that everybody gets heard. All right. Okay. Then bringing it back to the council, the next item on the agenda is tonight's consent agenda. Is there anything anyone wants to pull for discussion? Okay. Any comments from the public about tonight's consent agenda? All right, seeing none, back to the council for a motion.
Move to approve consent.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so the consent agenda is approved. As mentioned earlier, we have removed discussion item number 1. So we're actually on discussion item number 2. This was actually a quick report out from the Community Emergency Response Team. We call it the GTA, or Greater Trinidad Area Community Emergency Response Team. And I'm going to go ahead and give this update because Larry Goldberg, the head of the team, had a conflict tonight. And I apologize that I don't have any written material in the packet. So I'll try to keep it brief and be kind of high level. And then I'll get this out on the website.
Well, I read it already.
So I just want to say that the Community Emergency Response Team has had some significant accomplishments. We've sworn in 14 members in our February meeting, and that's significant for a town or an area our size. And we have 6 additional members who are going to join. So we'll have a team of 20. After the winter storm on Friday, March 1st, we mobilized the team, the GTA CERT, we're calling it GTA CERT because it's not just the Trinidad city limits. And we did an area-wide damage assessment. So we sent out teams of 2 for about an hour and a half, surveying the greater Trinidad area all the way up to Oric. So Oric, Big Lagoon, North Trinidad, West Haven, and south and north on Scenic. As well as the town proper. Minimal damage was reported. However, PG&E was replacing power lines after several branches and trees fell on power lines. The main thing was it was just a really good trial run for the team to kind of work together and go out when it wasn't a super serious storm or, a serious incident. So we afterwards, the executive committee met, which is Aaron Haken, the chair of the planning commission, myself, and Larry Goldberg. And we developed a quarterly training plan for the team, an outreach plan for local first responders. And we also listed out kind of all the equipment and needs that we have and budget, talked about getting grants, that sort of thing. There's also a radio working group, and Richard Johnson can feel free to chime in here, but there's or any other members of CERT. There was a serious need for a radio antenna at the firehouse. So the radio antenna at the firehouse is kind of flopped over and broken. We think it might cost up to $2,000. We're going to try to do it for less, but we do have the money in the budget. And so we're going to go ahead with that. And so we're going to go ahead and replace that. And that will actually help because then the CERT teams can coordinate with the Trinidad Volunteer Fire Department for emergency access to the radios, and the radios will be connected to the antenna. And if we lose communications, we'll have that as a hub. There's some other things that the radio working group is going to do is coordinating with the city, the newly appointed fire chief. They're going to participate in the Humboldt Bay CERT net check-in. So there's a Humboldt Bay area-wide team. They are going to look at the possibility of getting a repeater. For those of you who are not ham radio operators, that's just something that makes the signal stronger. And sometimes we don't have a strong enough signal here and we don't want to be an island in an emergency. So we will look at the feasibility and the cost for that. There's a few other things we're doing there. We're going to look at getting radios, walkie-talkies, ham radios, and a special radio for the emergency trailer. So I won't go into a lot of detail on that, but coming up on the 14th of April, we're going to train the teams on traffic control and traffic safety. And at that point, with the new walkie-talkies, the team will be deployed not just for emergencies, but they'll be able to help with event management and things like that. So for example, at the Celtic event, if we need help with traffic, that's available. And these are all volunteers. So, and then for the Fish Fest and those types of things. It's a 2-page report. I'm trying to give you the high level here. Let's see. I think maybe the thing I'm most excited about is that we will do on May 11th, we're going to do a Trinidad disaster preparedness workshop. So this will be for the entire community. And it was one of the main reasons I was really excited, besides responding to emergencies, that we were developing this CERT team, is that we could do outreach and help people to be more prepared if there is an earthquake or a tsunami or what have you. So we'll be doing that from 1 to 4 p.m. on May 11th, and it'll be Trinidad disaster scenarios, some general home preparedness like go bags. We'll introduce the CERT team and what kind of training the team goes through, basic first aid kits, and we'll also have some basic fire information as well. So let me stop there, take a breath, and see if you have any questions. Yes.
I just want to know that we had a foggy bottom on Ferndale this weekend, and one of the nicest things we found was the CERT group from Ferndale stepped up and took a lot of pressure off us by just helping out with all the traffic. And they were just incredible. It really made us everything go nicely for us. So I was excited to see all these people dressed in green. They had green combs. They were all matching. And they are all out there helping, and they were very happy and very excited to be there. And they were great for the kids and great for us. And because it rained about 2 inches, I think, while we were there, it was great to have that kind of help and not less to worry about. So I hope we all open our arms and get CERT to come out and help us out and all these things. They were fantastic.
Yeah, I was gonna wear my helmet, but I forgot to bring it. Anything to add, Richard? Anything you can think of, or? I know I might have missed a few things because it's Larry's report, but.
No, absolutely, it was a wonderful report. I just wanted to clarify one thing. Thank you. Getting the antennas fixed on the firehouse is extremely about that. We don't have any communication in the event that cases would go down. Just so it's clear in my mind, you mentioned that you had it in the budget for antenna repair, and
Yes.
that's approved.
Yes, it is
Okay.
approved. I exchanged an email with Gabe today and I sent it to Larry, but it hadn't gotten to you yet.
That's fine. That's
But it is in the fire station budget already.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead and go for it.
great.
Pretty important.
I just want to shout out a thank you to the Humboldt Area Amateur Radio Club. They are the ones who basically know most about that system in there. And they will be volunteering to help us make the repairs. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, let us know. I mean, Gabe and I spoke about it. I don't know, Gabe, do you want to see kind of like the estimate before we, or just give you the invoice? Okay, invoice. Sorry for us doing a little bookkeeping there, but I thought we might as well nail that one. Okay. All right. I think any questions from the public regarding the community emergency response team?
That May 11th, one before that's here.
That'll be here in the town hall.
And Jackie's.
Oh, yes, Jackie.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to congratulate the city on great progress. I haven't heard anything about it since the one meeting I think I attended last year, but no, that's tremendous progress. And as your partner, Trinidad Rancheria would really want to be part of everything that you're doing. We have hired a full-time emergency operations technician, but he's been spending about the last 6 months getting up to speed with our consultant and our team. We did experience a tree in that storm coming down on the sunset side of the casino, which caused tremendous damage. And luckily, an employee had just passed by that way, but there was no harm to that employee, thankfully. But I'm just wondering what the opportunities are for coordination, because that has everything to do with interoperability for all areas. So if we can get back on your list, and maybe we are, and maybe I missed it, for meetings for the CERT team, and reconnect on that interoperability. And the May 11th preparedness exercise sounds like a great event, and we just want to make sure that we're part of the team effort on emergency response.
Yeah, thank you. We, the executive committee, discussed that, and we need to reach out to you because your ears might have been burning, because we were listing all the things that we would love to connect with the Rancheria on. And I'll just mention, because I didn't mention it before, that there's a CERT training, an internal training, and that will be April 14th, and that's that traffic training. So I'll send you the details. What time it is and the location, and that's just for CERT or TERT team members. And we're happy to all the TERT members attend.
I'd like to get my team back in the email loop with anything the city is working on, and we'll do the same. We're just haven't been able to move forward as quickly as we had hoped. And then one last question, where was the Celtic event at?
It'll be here at the town hall.
At the town hall. Okay.
Yes.
And that was March.
The
May 18th.
yeah, May 18th. May 18th is the Celtic Festival. May 11th is the emergency preparedness event.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the calendar's filling up. Okay. All right, I'll send a note to you guys.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks. Okay, so we are ready to do our short-term rental lottery for applicants on the waiting list through February 2024. And getting an increasingly large pile of paper here, but what we want to do is, Eli, I don't know if you want to say a few words before we're going to do the little.
Okay. Yeah, so we have a wait list for the STR. And in the ordinance, it provides to do a lottery to fill the vacancies. We currently have one vacancy. We have 7 on the wait list for the urban residential. We have 7 bingo balls that are in there, and they're numbered 1 through 7. And we're going to pick the top 3 in that order, 1, 2, 3. And hopefully, the first one will be able to follow through, but if they don't, then we'll move to the second and then to the third. I think it's 60 days. Is that correct, Jennifer, that they have? 90 days. Okay, so 90 days in order to be operable as an STR. So our mayor will
I'm gonna do this fairly, so I'm like shaking with that. Okay, right. I shouldn't be nervous about it. But it didn't go well in my rehearsal.
It's the most dangerous part of the job, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay. It is 6, right? Not 9? It's got to be 6.
Yes, 6. Okay, so number 6 is number 1.
Yeah, Mr. Edel Rahman.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that right. Abdul Rahman. Mr. or Ms. Okay.
Right.
All right, let's do another one. Number 7, Katie Donnelly.
So that'll be number 2.
Yeah, that's number 2. That's number 5.
5.
So that would be Lisa and Taylor, I believe it's LaFever. Okay, all right.
So those are 1, 2, 3.
To those 3, and then we'll do them in order, depending on, okay.
Right. Yes. I'll remove that for you.
I guess I could open to any questions from the council.
Yeah, do we own this thing?
Yes.
It was a gift.
To move along, any questions from the public regarding the short-term rental lottery? Okay. Seeing none, we'll resume our agenda then with the discussion decision regarding resolution 2024-2 authorizing creation of the Animal Control Advisory Committee. So we'll let Eli kind of kick us off on this, and then we'll hopefully have a good discussion.
Okay. So at our prior meetings, we've been talking about dogs in the city. And some of our council members have been asking, what else can we be doing? And we've got, first of all, I'll point out a few things. Number 1, we have within the past year put up approximately 40 signs around the city saying to have your dog on a leash. And secondly, we sent a letter to all the residents encouraging them to, number 1, telling them that they need to have their dogs on a leash. And then we also indicated that there are some beaches, not Trinidad State Beach, but there are some beaches like Moonstone, where it is permitted by the county to have a dog off leash. Then we have also created what's called a leash lending library, which basically functions during the summer, where we have on Trinity Street a small place where you can actually take a book out, the lending library. And right below that is set up as a leash library. We don't currently have leashes there, but we will as we get into May. So basically from May through September. And it's also been suggested, had a presentation twice about doing radio advertising to encourage visitors to realize that they need to have their dogs on leash in the city. We want to make sure that when people come here, that they're aware of that, because we don't want any incidents to happen like what happened to Ted. And then also in October, we approved and set up the animal control contract so that animal control from the county can directly provide service to the city. We're following up on that just to make sure that they are doing that. But the contract was signed by the city in October. We are trying to follow up and make sure that we get the signed portion back from the county. So far we haven't seen it, but we do have calls out to our sheriff's office since they handle animal control. So in addition to that, it was suggested by Katie and Cheryl that we possibly have a dog advisory committee. But then in discussion, we decided to extend it even more and just call it like Animal Control Advisory Committee. So if there are any other animals that the public have, whether it's roosters, is permitted, cats and so on, that become a nuisance, that the committee could address also as well. And whether they're allowed or they're not allowed. So if they're not allowed, we want to make sure people are aware of that. So Cheryl put this together. I don't know if you want to talk about it.
I wanted to mention first that Ted Pease, I think, brought this up in our last discussion. I think he said that maybe we should consider having a committee. And so I just went ahead and drafted a resolution in case the council decided it was a good idea. So I don't need to read through it, except maybe the purpose, which is to review and make recommendations regarding current, I said dog related, we could change that to animal related ordinances and regulations, to develop communications and awareness programs that encourage adherence to regulations and to assist the council in pursuing dog related or animal related project funding. And then probably it would be good to, I guess, first as a council decide whether we think it's a good idea to have a committee, and then also look at the purpose and the committee membership to see if that makes sense. So I think I'll open it to a discussion to the council and let you guys weigh in.
I'll just simply say that I think it's a great idea. If we have council members who are willing to step in and lead this. It just seems like another opportunity to kind of take care of this problem that keeps arising. Anyway, I think this is written up nice. I think it's a very smooth idea. So I like it.
And I would just add, agree. It's a very, I think it's a very comprehensive plan. Just having had these committees in the past, I think it would be also nice to say, folks will serve for 1 or 2 years, just to outline what the expectation. I think it helps people know what they're signing up for. I think it's a wonderful mix of membership as well.
I concur. It really covers all the things that were, of concern to me in terms of promoting awareness. And, I'm particularly interested in making sure we don't have an aggressive dog situation blooming in our midst and no one's paying attention to it. So that a committee like this could set things up where that didn't happen.
Any other comments or questions from the council? Okay. Public comments or questions, like You folks think it's a good idea to have a committee or have any suggestions? I can't see, I don't see anything online. Do you guys? I'm not online right now. Okay.
Well, normally, now we do have.
Is Jackie's hand up still? Or?
Yeah, still up.
Jackie, your hand is raised. Did you want to add a comment about this?
Yes, we would be very supportive of the Animal Control Advisory Committee. And I know you're just, beginning now to formulate the resolution and the purpose and then discuss membership. But with the Rancheria's holdings at the harbor, we deal with this every day. And it would be really important and a recommendation to have a Rancheria representative on the committee when you get to that point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments?
Want to get that straight. So you guys are, State Beach is supposed to have leashes,
Yes.
but Moonstone is allowed to be off leash. I just want to get that straight.
So
Yeah, Moonstone is, and there are some others that it's a county beach.
Right. So
Yeah.
State Beach leashes.
yeah.
All county is voice control for dogs, unless otherwise stated.
Okay, thank you.
And then also, just as a side note, at the town hall office, we do have some flyers that identify the various beaches that allow a voice control.
And that's a good thing, I'm glad you asked that question and the fact that we have a flyer, because I think communication can be something that the committee can work on so that everybody knows like what's available and what the rules are. And it's nice to know that. All right, I'll bring it back to the council. So it sounds like we like this idea. We might want to make some changes. We also need to select a chair and a co-chair. Is there anyone who wants, Jack and I will have, we have someone in mind.
Oh, yeah.
Is there anyone who would like to sign up to be the chair?
You finally figured out how this works. When they look at you, you're about to volunteer.
We looked at her the way my dog looks at me.
Well, and I would just, before we do anything, I would like to kind of keep the resolution discussion going. I would recommend that we do add the Rancheria as a member because of the I guess it's the difficulty for folks to know, when their dog crosses a property line and whatnot. So let's bring the Rancheria because of the tight connection in the area. And also, just like I said, I would recommend add a 2-year term or a 1-year term, something like that.
Yeah, thank you for.
Other than that, yeah, I also
Thanks for
support
going.
it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And Cheryl, if I can comment, number one, wherever it says Dog Advisory Committee, there's 4 spots to change the Animal Control Advisory. Yeah.
Right.
And then number 2, regarding what Steve Ladwick has said regarding the committee membership. So in there, it's listed 2 city council members, which is fine. This is my opinion. It says 1 animal control officer. I would suggest that the animal control officer would be attending the meetings suggested, but not a committee member.
Yeah.
In place of that, then we can place the Trinidad Rancheria. And then the next one says 1 City of Trinidad resident, and then 1 Trinidad area resident. That would compose the 5. And then it suggested that a veterinarian be optional. So I would say that would be good to have that in addition to the animal control officer, that if they can be available, along with having, at least we'll have 1 staff member present.
Sort of a subject area experts that are brought in for particular meetings.
Yeah, either that or at least the animal control officer, or even the veterinarian, if they wish to attend every meeting, that would be fine also. But they wouldn't be a voting member. That they would be, like Steve said, an expert helping guide the policy.
Well, as the chair, does that work for you, Katie?
Sounds great. I had a question about, if I to hear about promoting funds, there was something,
The funding?
yeah.
The assist the council in pursuing animal or dog-related project funding.
What would that entail?
I think the committee would maybe brainstorm, and we can also take that out, but I think the idea was that the committee might brainstorm, like, where would you get, could you recommend grants that we look for grants, for example, to fund certain projects, or take it out of the budget, or, just kind of make funding recommendations, and how much. The radio ads could be a good example. Maybe the committee would have looked at that and said, we definitely want to do that, and so we recommend that to the council.
But if we needed to pursue grants, for example, we could come to the council
Yes.
and ask our grant people.
Yes, you could bring any monetary aspect to the council. You don't have to go and write the grants yourself.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, other questions or comments? All right, is there a second?
And then I did want to note that since Steve had mentioned either 1 or 2 years, I suggested 2 years so we can have that clear in there.
Is there a person on the council who would like to be the co-chair of the Animal Control Advisory Committee?
Yeah, you gave him the stare. Look at that.
For two, actually.
In the know.
All right, excellent. Okay. While we're on a roll, if there was anybody from the planning commission who wanted to, I guess the planning commission needs to vote on it, right? So, did I include the planning commission?
No. No, I don't know what you're
Should
planning.
be. Yeah, yeah, okay.
They're busy with the general plan.
I think it didn't seem like a fit, but we should have discussed that, I guess. Okay, we're probably getting.
So, go ahead.
Yes. Question? Please.
I'm wondering, is this going to be complaint driven, or is it going to be more monitored? In what way? I mean, thinking about the beach, there's people that go there, and it's really hard to exercise your dog, especially if you have limping, if people have dogs, the dogs have a lot more energy than we do. And there's a lot of dogs that just, play with a frisbee at the beach or things like that. And it's been going on for decades, and there's been a few problems. I mean, there's this problem dog from out of the area that comes, and I totally agree, it's a horrible thing. And it's a major issue to have a dog biting somebody. That dog that bit Ted also, that person was actually visiting them at the house from when I heard a report on the radio, and that it was okay the first time, but when they went out and came back in, the dog bit him in the one house. And it's really a problem animal. It wasn't, both times this person was at the house, it wasn't actually at the beach or anything. No. And the other incident that I'm aware of at the beach is in regards to a guy who had way too many dogs. We had 6 or 8 poodle. I don't remember how many actually. Large number of dogs, but you see people every day peacefully playing with their dogs on the beach. And I just wonder, how are we supposed to exercise their dogs? We're not like the worst, you put them on a lunch line and they just run around, Anyway, I would hope that there'd be some freedom, because it starts to feel pretty, starting to feel more and more like a big city where, you can't have your dog anywhere but a dog park, which is not someplace I really want to spend time personally. Anyway, just hoping that it's not going to get too restrictive. There's a lot of good dogs and a lot of good people that are just trying to get their dogs exercise, which is pretty positive.
Thank you. Any comments? Anyone to? Okay.
I'm ready to make a motion.
All right.
I move that we approve the resolution 2024-02 with the following amendments: the 2-year term for members of the advisory committee, and to replace replace the animal control officer position with a member of the Trinidad Rancher Union.
And add the animal control.
I'm sorry, and to replace
after the vet, but so there'll be non-voting members.
Right. And to replace all the word dog with animal, so that it's consistent throughout the resolution.
Finished?
I don't know.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great, congratulations.
Oh, and I didn't say that we approved that these two clowns be part of it. Is that a separate?
You better be careful. Or you're gonna make it out. Sure. Sign it up.
No, I mean, and in all seriousness, it wasn't part of the motion.
Oh,
So
Yeah, might as well have another motion.
I believe that.
I think it would be good.
Okay, so I'll move that Katie Breckenridge, chair, and Jack Tuttle as the co-chair of the Animal Control Advisory Committee.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I can push yourself, it's okay. All right. Okay. Yes. All right, so the last thing is the November 2024 city election and state tax measure update. And I'm going to turn it over to staff to give us an update.
Yeah, and we have our expert city clerk who prepared the documents here regarding the sales tax extension, which we've had the sales tax in the city since 2004 and is an important part of the revenue in order to provide services ranging from law enforcement to a variety of others, such as the Animal Control Advisory Committee, and also, helping the fire department and any kind of enforcing, which is always has been suggested that we have more enforcement regulations. And then, of course, Gabe will cover the city election calendar. Alternate Gabe.
Thank you. Hi, appreciate having the opportunity to kick this election year off. On the screen is the preamble staff report that was included in the packet to identify where exactly we are at in this calendar and why we are talking about this so early in the year. I'll give a little bit of a background on the tax, and ultimately tonight what I was hoping to do, and I'll just kind of jump straight forward to let's call it some direction to staff as to whether or not we as a city want to proceed with placing the ballot measure on November ballot. And our first real deadline is probably, I think, closer to June. And then in May, we'll be preparing, but when election deadlines approach, they happen to be really fast. And then before you know it, they were yesterday. And you don't want to miss a deadline when it comes to the sales tax process, when it comes to the state elections code. It's very unforgiving. So I like to address these things as early as possible because, things you get wrapped up in a lot of different projects around here. And as Mr. Johnson mentioned, this is, we have the same problems as a big city, and but we have less people and a smaller budget to do. So to kick this off, I think I wanted to provide a little bit of background, and I threw up this narrative in the packet just to explain how many times we've been through this. It started in April 2004 with a 1% transaction and use sales tax for a period of 4 years, and at that time the city was near bankrupt. It took effect January 1, 2005 and ended in December 31st, 2008. In 2008, the voters approved a 0.75% sales tax, and it was effective for 4 years. And again in 2012, and again in 2016. In 2016, it was a 63% majority vote to support it. And then in 2020, the most recent, it was a 73% voter support. 268 voters roughly in both elections. So the tax has generated an average, at least in this past fiscal year, approximately $200,000. And I think around 2008, 2012, it's about $150,000. So it's gone up, not incredibly, but over the course of a 10 or 11 year period, it's it makes a difference. And general fund budget is what the sales tax supplements, along with occupancy tax and various other revenues that the city receives. But in a nutshell, the $200,000 is about 22% of the city's budget. I'll throw up a slide here in a second. But basically, to continue the sales tax or implement a different tax, the measure will need to be included on this upcoming year ballot. It actually expires in April of the 2025. So we're about 4 months ahead in terms of its implementation. So if the city chooses not to put it on the November ballot, then it would expire in April 30th, 2025. Those revenues will be received, and then the state Department of Tax and Fee Administration will be decommissioned tax. So, the cost of that implementation, by the way, is $22,000, at least last for the last election. That's what we were quoted by the state. So if we let the tax sunset and we wanted to bring it back later, it'd be another $22,000 to $30,000 probably in the next couple. So on the screen, I'm going to throw up here just some things we can all look at. Here's the history that I just explained. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 election cycles, this tax has been renewed. It was in 2016, I believe, where the city discussed the possibility of just making an endless tax, which is legal. You could just place a tax without a time limit. And by a majority vote of the council, it can be undone. And it would take time to sunset, but it could be done within a year. But at that time, the council, which I think for good cause, thought that, hey, let's stick with the 4 years because it does create an accountability. It creates an accountability for the city to be checked from time to time. It can be changed, but people don't like change, you know. And this 4-year cycle is something that the council could also consider as part of this process in the next couple of months. Again, my goal is to have this wrapped up by May, but we could decide as a city to say, we're going to put it on there. What harm is it to put it on the ballot? And that's really what this is all about. Do we want the election to take place? We're not saying we want it or not. We're just saying we want this election to take place. And that's what I'm asking. That's what we're asking instead of the council. Let's just say honor before. So this is the kickoff. And as part of the kickoff, we could receive public comment. You could receive public comment and you could choose to reverse that back out to staff to answer questions. Answer questions for yourselves, and we can come back with it. So this is, again, very preliminary, but we want to do our diligence to make sure that if it goes on the ballot, we do it intentionally. And again, it's just—
How can I respond? Thank you.
So some of the sales tax generators, we heard a little bit about this tonight. Mr. Johnson brought it up. Retail transactions, restaurants, gift shops, grocery, online shopping, and the big ticket items. We do issue, by the way, we do issue letters to people who are buying big ticket items. And usually those letters that are sales tax exemption letters is what we call them. They do help. It's happened to me in the last couple of years. I argued with Roy's for a minute, you know, when they told me that I had a Trinidad sales tax issue. Not that I paid it, but I was just curious as going through that process myself, you know, how strict and stringent it was. And they did have flexibility. I was happy to hear that about the big ticket items. But the little stuff, as we learned tonight, and I've known for a while, is problematic. Here's the anatomy of what the sales tax rate looks like in Trinidad, but across the board. So, you know, the blue is 6% state tax, county of Humboldt combined tax is 0.75. The city's Bradley, they call it Bradley Burns. Local tax is the 1%, and then we have that additional 0.75. So that makes up our 8.5% sales tax rate.
What's the Bradley Burns thing?
That's the standard amount of tax that we would get with or without the 0.75. So in our case, in the next slide, well, advance to this one. In the next slide, you can see how the pie is divided up in terms of the city's revenue sources. So you can see the 1% sales tax, that's they call it Bradley Burns tax. That's the standard tax rate, base drum that the city would receive no matter what.
Yeah, every city receives it.
Every city?
Yeah.
And then the 0.75, how that compares with that, it's almost neck and neck, 22% of the pie, both. And then property taxes, which used to be the lion's share of taxes in Trinidad, which is long gone. And is being here by occupancy, almost tied with occupancy taxes, but sales tax make up the lion's share. And those are very volatile resources, right? Sales tax and occupancy taxes are volatile, although we've had some luck with them in the last decade. But during COVID, you could see how they were disrupted pretty quickly. In sales and use taxes and occupancy taxes being volatile taxes, without them, I think they would be in a much different position. There's been a lot of legwork done since 2004 when the city was nearly bankrupt. I think some people in the room maybe can remember what things were like for the city back then. It's a whole different world. The regulatory environment wasn't nearly as, well, I shouldn't say it wasn't. It was still strict, but not nearly as crazy as it seems to be getting in these days. And again, Mr. Johnson mentioned it earlier tonight about the regulatory environment relative to a small city or a big city. It's all the same. We have the same problems. We have to deal with it. We just got to do it more resourcefully. So this is what the city's revenue share would look like. And I don't know what the city would look like without that tax. I've worked here for 21 years now, almost in May. And in 2004, the year after I started, I didn't know really what was going on financially. I was still pretty young and I hadn't really understood the city's financial situation. But the people that were here at that time, let's call them the town mothers and fathers, they seemed to know what was going on. And they put this in place. And it's been here at least as long as I've been here almost. And so I don't really know what it would look like to operate a city like this in today's environment without them, which a lot to the city. And again, the gas station provides, from what I understand, the lion's share. What that means in the near future in terms of, electric cars and where those revenues might go relative to the price of gas increasing, to the supply and demand. Those are just guesses, but right now, maybe Eli has something to offer, but
yeah. Yeah, I was just going to mention in the state, there's 482 cities and 480 is our number. We're number 480. There's only 2 cities smaller than we are. With the sales tax, we get a lot of visitors. And they impact the city, whether it's wear and tear on the roads or whatever it is. So that's one way to actually have visitors, help pay part of the cost. That cost shouldn't be all on the backs of our residents. And sales tax is the best way to cover that.
It's not the staff's role to sell anything. It's the council's role to drive the city. I think that what we're doing is just presenting some information here for everyone to digest. But I think I was really impressed at the last election. 73% voter approval was by far the highest in all the years that we've been doing this. And I think that's just maybe a testament to the educated community and how they perceive the town being used. When you realize that a lot of visitors coming and RVs at the gas station coming and dropping a dime and then leaving. I think there's an awareness of that, at least majority of the tax, I would say, that the city receives as a result. So it's really up to the council how you could say tonight, like, we all agree, with public comment is aligned with what you're thinking, you can decide tonight to just let's prepare to proceed to put it on the ballot and give the voters another opportunity. Or you can say, got a couple of questions, let's talk about this again.
Are there questions for Gabe and anybody? I guess I do. Did you have one? I have, but I was just curious, you were talking about the gas station and so forth. We don't get a breakdown where the 0.75%, or do we get a breakdown of how it,
No,
where it comes from?
no, we don't get a breakdown. There are services that do provide a breakdown, but the breakdown is strictly intended for staff, and the council, but is not intended for the public. Yeah.
And then I guess I was curious about back in 2004, voters approved a 1% tax. 2007, they did not. And then since then, it's been the 0.75. Was 0.75 just the magic number that people felt more comfortable with, do you think, or?
That's a good question. It was a special election for that April 2007 election took place. And I don't think got into around that. I don't know if you remember, but I think there's sometimes a misconception about what a special tax, like a directed tax is versus what is a general. And Trinidad has made it very clear that this is a general tax. A general tax requires a simple majority, 51% of the voters to approve. Special tax or a directed tax requires a super majority. Correct. For specific things. So at that point in time, I think in 2004, just to kind of touch back on this a little bit and how these dynamics can play out in public, in 2004, there was sort of let's just do this for 4 years. That was its kickoff. And at that time, there were a lot of people who were very sensitive about taxation. And there still isn't, but at that time, it was a new thing. So there were some folks that perceived it to be a trust. And in 4 years, it would go. And as it developed and we realized the city realized the potential, I think there was I think they got a little ahead of themselves on the second one, made some assumptions, and then there was a perception that it would be used for public safety. So it was a reframing of how it would be used in the narrative of where that money was going. Was it going to replenish coffers of a bankruptcy that nearly happened as a result of a couple of people's feud in town, or was it money that we were now going to use to provide the town with more public safety? So a lot of it had to do with the framing of the discussions at the time, and I think it was denied that first go around because they felt like, I think the people knew that they were like, no, we don't like this and where it's going. Let's talk about this again. Bring it back in November, and there was a bigger turnout as well. In 2008, I think that was
a presidential,
yeah. So there was a much larger turnout at that election than there was at the 8th. There's a lot of factors that
Yeah.
And the other part of it is, like you said, April versus November, and especially because the one election was in 2007, which is an odd year. So if you do have it in the presidential year, you get a large turnout, which allows more people to express their opinions, which is ideal. That's what democracy is built on. So when you figure we have 268 voters, and the city's like 309 people, that is phenomenal. That's probably one of the highest city voting rates in the country.
I have a question. So it went to 0.75 in 2008. This is 2024. We're not considering raising it a smidge?
But like I said, people don't like change.
Well, and just to be clear, I don't know if you mentioned this, it also would cost the city several tens of thousands of dollars to ask the state franchise tax people to change the formula. So it doesn't cost, it's not free to nudge it a little. It's actually pretty expensive.
And Katie, another point is inflation. which means it has gone up every time. We've been getting more money every time. So it has been nudging up. That's just not the percentage nudging up, but the overall income has been nudging up.
I hesitate to say anything because of inflation.
But that's the beauty of a percentage, is that it matches inflation.
I would like to say something.
Yes, please.
I would like to say something. Yeah. I am a out of Trinidad city limit person. I've been in this community for 40 years. I remember all of this discussion about taxation when it happened. At that time, there was 1,500 homes or 1,500 delivery points in area code 95570. So when you talk about elections, you're talking about roughly 300 people at the most that voted and affected the other people. Yes, we found out that if we bought a car, yeah, we had to let the salesperson know. Having said that, when it comes to catalog sales, you can't control it. I followed it up enough to go to actually the state, and what they said was, oh yeah, our system will be in place so that if you live outside the city, you won't be affected in regard to catalog sales, in regard to anything you buy. Well, apparently, I've been busy in my life. My husband passed away 10 years ago. I haven't paid attention to this issue. I am now very much paying attention because you people at the city were told when this started, this would affect people outside of the city that would be supporting the city of Trinidad. And that's not right. It is taxation without representation. I really think if there's a vote, it should apply to everybody in the zip code of 95570. And there should be, everybody in that zip code should benefit from the tax, not just the people in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. This is, yeah, it's been echoed a few times in public comments. It's kind of an ongoing problem that we have. And so something to factor into our thinking. I know Eli and I were doing a brainstorm one day about the little 4-digit code that comes on the end of 95570. Like, could we solicit the post office to get different, 4-digit numbers? But
or how about the state franchise system? They could have changed it. They could have made a special zip code for the people outside the city, but apparently they didn't move ahead and they didn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, we thought at one point, I think, Gabe has in the past given them all the street addresses and the boundaries and maps and so forth. And even that didn't do the trick, especially it seems like the online retailers and, to your point, the big ticket items are, and I don't know if I should say this, I sometimes don't get charged a tax at all. So it's like it seems to be kind of inconsistent. Like sometimes I'm charged it and sometimes I'm not. And I think that may be true for people outside as well. Doesn't seem to be.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. But I think it's the city's responsibility to make sure the people outside of the city are not harmed. And right now they're harmed because they have no voice in what you guys are doing that can affect them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to recommend to the city that if you're going to move ahead, you better make sure that you've got a system within the state that distinguishes between the people in the city or outside of the city. You shouldn't put a tax in place. You shouldn't put a tax in place unless you can do that.
All right, thank you. I think
we have Richard Johnson at the beginning of the meeting had talked about it and indicated that he did a lot of research in the past 3 days. And one thing that he did come up with was putting on our website the exact addresses that are with, that the retailers can refer to that and be directed to that. So we will be doing that. It'll show the number of streets that are in the city limits and the numbers that are on those streets, because some streets like West Haven, and Scenic go beyond the city limits. So, and also just to let Barbara know that Richard Johnson also said he was going to provide the city with the material in his research. So that's all going to be useful that we could share with anyone outside the city in the county who's impacted of ways that they can hopefully get that corrected, because it's beyond our control, as the state told Richard.
I would just offer that perhaps we could agendize this. I know you do this now every month as we go through election season, but at least by May, if possible by April. I think these are all valid points that if we do have something in place for our 95570 residents in our greater Trinidad area to access some city resources to provide to vendors, hey, you know, when they request that sales tax be reduced by 0.75%, that they can reference city website materials that indicate, you know, these are the streets and I'm not one of them, that kind of thing. But that, for me anyway, I really appreciate when there's just a form I can print out where I put relevant information and send it to whatever vendor I'm sending it to. I think that would really help, because I hear what folks are saying, that while they benefit from living in the greater Trinidad area, they don't have say over this 0.75. And it would be nice that the city does use some of that income to help those residents.
Can I add a comment here? This builds on what you just mentioned. Is just a reminder, this is a general tax. It can be used for anything. It's not restricted to anything in particular. So in the budget process, if there are things such as the ham radio equipment that could benefit the entire 95570 district, you know, those are things to consider and maybe articulate when we're doing our budget. Some of the things that this small city does is not necessarily an insulated bubble. A lot of the things that we do and we participate in has a ripple effect out into the world. So I think what you mentioned, Steve, is a great idea, and I'll work with Richard here to make sure our website. In fact, it did have our previous website, by the way, had. But when we made a new website this last summer, a lot of those things that were in a very prominent location on purpose kind of disappeared because our website structure changed.
Yeah.
So we'll make that a priority to get that platform.
Leading up to this election season, they would really, you know, in the news and updates and whatever, the new website is pretty easy to find what's happening now, kind of thing. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and things like the community emergency response team, I mean, more of the things that we're funding could be, you know, we have the joint, you know, fire department between West Haven and Trinidad, you know, we have a shared chief. You know, I think there is kind of a movement to do more and more.
The emergency intertie systems is at our expense, but it's benefiting the greater Trinidad area. So there's a lot of ways that we can, I mean, it's easy to conceptualize it, but it's harder to articulate it in writing. So maybe we could just add a few of those things.
Yes.
In December 2022, when I believe that's when it was, either that or January, but Cheryl and the town hall was made available to all the residents outside the city, because the city actually had the power at that time, but the residents outside the city didn't have power. But I agree with what Gabe was saying and Steve saying and Cheryl, that, you know, we want to be more proactive to do more for the whole area. And even Richard Johnson was mentioning the word annexation, that either way, you know, whatever we can do for the area that can benefit the area is instrumental. And I'm on the chamber, and they even call the chamber the Greater Trinidad Chamber of Commerce. So, you know, we're all together here. So I think the more we do together, it's a plus.
Yeah, I'd love to have I like send a flyer out to all the West Haven 95570 residents that are getting affected, especially for cars. I mean, that's the biggest ticket item. So say you get a letter in the mail, say, please hit a barcode and you'll get a flyer exception.
The form that you need to file.
Yeah.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes.
Just for food for thought, as we're talking about these causes and effects. In 2012, that was the year that the the city did its last water rate restructure. And as a result of that happening, coinciding with the same year, we had a sales tax election. There were a lot of people came to these meetings and said, hey, I'm a water customer outside the city limits and I don't get to vote on your sales tax. You know, and I'm affected by this. So that was when the city had dropped the differential between the outside and the city, outside and inside city. I know that's just specifically for water rate customers outside the city limits, but those are some of the ideas that were kicked around. And those are some of the, that's how some of the city's policies have been shaped by decisions that were made like that. To offer like an olive branch to some folks that were affected. So that can continue into this year.
Any other public comments on sales tax?
Trinidad was it. These are general questions, kind of go to your budget preparation, but they're based on figures that are in the packet. On the first page of the staff report, it says that general fund revenues are $796,000. On this portion, it says that general fund $898,000. And so one table leads us to deficit spending, one table leads us to positive area. So going forward, I'm wondering which figures are going to be, used for that. That's $100,000. That's quite a bit. The other thing I have a question is, you said they were very close. It's 0.25%, but on your presentation, it says that % more than percent. This table, $1,000 for the 3/4 and $200 for the 1.
Right.
So just
Not exactly.
kind of a stickler with the numbers, as you can remember. I was on these.
You're a math teacher because picking up.
And so, but the deficit thing concerns me with like, are we deficit spending or are we not deficit spending for 2023, 2024?
Great question. I can answer.
Okay.
So the revenue sources you see on this sheet right here that were not part of that first summary are, I put the asterisks by it, but I forgot to add the note. Those are unaudited numbers. So
That was my next question. What's the asterisk?
I had to, and I put that on there because I don't like putting out numbers unless they are audited numbers because the audit's a very important process. So, in prior years, I've used this same table and those numbers were within almost exactly, like you saw on the piece of pie, it's like 22%, 20%. So this last year we had about $401,000 in revenue, but it's an unaudited revenue. I think it was probably more closer to like 420. So I used the figures that we had and I just kind of parsed them out because I did not have the exact data, but I know, as you can see from prior years, it's almost 20%, 22%.
Yeah, it's going to be very close.
It's close as I can get. Now, we budgeted our revenues at $796,000 in this past budget year, but we actually, in 2023, but we actually received almost $100,000 more in revenue. But that was also as a result of not spending what we thought we were going to spend. So it's a combination of the two. And again, when we're chartering into unaudited territory, I get really nervous. And I just want to make sure that I put out numbers there that make sense. That's a big
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks. I'm not trying to nitpick everything, but the $100,000 thing that's a big deal. And in moving to like, I heard the word responsibility. We've got the sales tax. We need to use it wisely and such. So I didn't talk about the animal advisory committee, but because this is a general comment as to all committees, I highly encourage you to, if we're going to use this tax money for these things, have a budget for the committees because staff time starts to add up as a member of these committees. We have minutes, we have staff coming to the meetings. These meetings aren't free because they're all volunteer based by the people that are there. And like I said earlier, $1,000 here, $1,000 there, pretty much you got a free antenna on top of the fire department. thing like that. So I saw that you wanted to meet every month. So just please keep those kinds of things in mind. They cost dollars, but they also cost time for staff where they could maybe be doing something not more meaningful, but maybe something more urgent.
Yeah, there's an opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Other public comments were regarding sales tax?
I just wanted to reinforce what Gabe said about when we started this in 2004, I remember Mayor Nyingo going door to door and selling this it's only 4 years and it'll sunset. And he really pushed that, and also to pay for the feudal lawsuits and things. And then there was the talk of, well, now this will go for law enforcement when it was brought up again. So, I support the 4% tax, and I think we citizens who live outside of the city do have a lot of benefits just by living here, because we come here every day, even though we may live outside. But I would support Richard's. I don't know if you really were supporting annexation, but I'd be on board with that. But if we're presenting, the 3/4 sales tax, which I strongly recommend not changing, because it does turn into a big deal. And Steve's right. You change that with state water utilization, and it's a big number. I can't remember what it was, but it was huge to make the change. Like you go from 3/4 to 1 1/4 or something like that, or to let it sunset for that matter, like not reestablish the tax, and there's other fees to reinstate it. So I guess I would just say that the 3/4% sounds like a good idea to try to just perpetuate that and not try to change anything. But also to not raise expectations that we've got a very hard time when the 4 years passed and it was perpetuated after. He didn't promise it would sunset, but that was sort of an expectation at the time.
Okay. Thank you.
Just as a side note, at that time, the council, unfortunately, I'm using the words unfortunate, that they had to put so much time because there was no city manager.
Yeah.
So as a result, they each had their own committee, and they were doing a lot of work for the city. So that's at that time. So, times have changed, and of course we have more staff too, but just having the cost of an additional, 1 or 2 employees, that by itself, is basically where, the sunset really, evolved beyond the sunset. So.
All right.
I would like to make a motion to put it on the ballot for 3/4,
Okay.
4 years.
There's a second?
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor?
All right.
Aye, and I would definitely like to explore the suggestion that Councilor Ladwig made, though, that we look at, our broader services so that there's, some and update the website and things like that. So
And just to add to everybody's lexicon, the fact that this is a percentage, the inflation is a big topic these days, and just to realize that it is a percentage. And I think you raised the point that whatever it is, it keeps pace with the needs of the city because it's based on a percentage of the cost. So it just helps everybody frame their discussion as they're having their, discussions with our constituents about what this tax means. It is designed to keep pace. So.
All right, I think our next item is just future topics, and I just will recap things that have. Did I miss something? I'm sorry.
Well,
did you want us to?
There is the calendar in the back that mentioned.
Calendar. I'm sorry. Let's go ahead and finish that.
It's again, this is something I'm gonna just toss at the bottom of every agenda packet moving forward, just so we can, keep on track. I know there was a couple things that were little off, like our rate study, and that was in a different calendar. This is mainly the election calendar. So with this past us now, we don't have to do part 2, which is in April. But we may decide to spend a little more time discussing budget. So that was April's preparation of the upcoming fiscal year budget. And I like this discussion because it does provide us with some direction at staff to frame some of the discussions that we will have about budget expenditures relative to how not just the city benefits, but for the greater Trinidad area. That's it.
Okay. Any comments or questions about the calendar? Any public comments about the calendar? All right, bringing it back to the council then. Oh, sorry, we do have a public comment. Please, Richard.
Very quickly, you didn't mention it earlier in the CERT report, but I would, excuse me, like to just reemphasize with the idea that we would like to come back during the budget process of the proposal for the amateur radio repeater. And the reason for that, I won't go into detail now, but the reason for that is that is a primary way in which we can still maintain communications with the rest of the world, basically. I just want to give you a heads up that we'll come back with that proposal to have you look at during budget discussions.
Yeah, that's a good one. And that also benefits the greater Trinidad area. So thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Future topics. I just want to recap what we already mentioned tonight. One was that we do need to get the council to vote one way or the other on the OPEX versus CAPEX water budget issue, or assignment of funds, not issue. I'm going to come back to this next one. We talked about the Trinidad time capsule. We talked about annexation, and that I think would be future. I think we'd like to maybe confer with the planning commission a little on that, and kind of, it may take staff some time to prepare a discussion basically, but maybe the next, the next topic for the council would be more of a, should we go forward, even exploring and how, kind of high level. I need to mention the Rancheria interchange project. So I received a number of emails today. You guys probably saw the public comments and the follow-on emails that I had. A number of people were asking for us, the council, to do a interchange project overview, but that requires some thought on our part on how we want to frame that discussion, who needs to be in that discussion. And so we're in dialogue with the Rancheria. We're in dialogue internally to see if it's something we would just do on our own. The community seems to want that. However, the Rancheria has had a number of public forums already, so it's that kind of thing. So I guess after staff and the Mayor Pro Tem and I have had some more discussion. We've only discussed this once. Maybe we can come back to the council and have a more transparent discussion about what we think would be best. And I think I captured everything that was. Is there anything I missed that future topic?
I think for the annexation, two things. One is I think some sort of presentation to the council and the community of, to understand annexation, and even some, and I hesitate to say this, but in the water studies, we had some proposed annexations through one of those studies that, had 3 areas and the pros and cons of those 3 areas. So I would suggest that if we're going to have this conversation, and to echo, I'm on LAFCO and we can spend a lot of time on the simplest thing. So it's going to take years to happen, but if it needs to happen quickly, like you said, we're already behind the 8 ball. So I think we need to make a decision quickly. Are we going to invest our time in annexation? And if so, what it looks like because of the period of time it takes. And then the term that a city elected representative spends on LAFCO ends in June.
And I would really encourage one of my fellow counselors to attend one of those meetings with me so that we can pass the baton, because I voted on a health district in Southern Humboldt. So it's not everything that is 100% Trinidad, but we will be going through the annexation process. And it does help in this little nimble committee to have Trinidad representation for something that affects us like that. So that's my pitch for someone to get involved. I will not be running for re-election in November. And so I want to make sure that folks get onto these really important committees. I mean, you can live your whole life and not know what LAFCO does or even what it stands for, and yet you have been affected by it. So I guarantee you've been affected by LAFCO. So I want to make sure that someone from Trinidad is able to step up for that. So I just put that out there in the ether for folks.
So it sounds like a good idea.
I just wanted to note regarding the annexation. We used to live in Orange County in Laguna Niguel, and excuse me, we moved there in 1985. And in 1987, they started, people had talked about possibly becoming a city. But in 1987, we started Citizens for Cityhood. And 2 years later, in 1989, we actually became a city. We voted. So that's in Orange County. It's a city of, like, at that time, around 60,000, and still did it within 2 years. So
lightning fast.
Yeah.
That is fast.
So hopefully we can move halfway decently here if that's the will of the people.
And I appreciate that. The procedure is certainly set up to not take 10 years, but I think the discussion is whether we should do it and how we should do it is what's going to take the time. It's going to take some
time. I
before we even go to LAFCO.
Yeah, the presentation. Yeah.
And Jackie online.
Yes. Jackie, did you want to add something?
Thank you. I wanted to speak to the comment regarding the city discussion on a town hall meeting regarding freeway access. Just in complete transparency, it is something that the mayor and I have discussed via email and then on a phone call, because the Rancheria has been the recipient of some very inappropriate comments and accusations. And we are in the environmental phase. And so our goal is to provide accurate information. And our goal is to explain everything completely and thoroughly. And where we left off, Mayor Cheryl and I, was that we would engage in government-to-government formal consultation as per my tribal council's request to possibly come to some agreement on how that town hall might happen. But the Rancheria doesn't have any desire to bring our engineers and be under extreme attack for the project. I think there has to be ground rules. There has to be what's allowed and what's not allowed in public comment. And it shouldn't be accusatory, defamatory, or name calling. So at this point in time, it's not that we don't want to share the information, it's that we don't want to be subjected to negative attacks. So just wanted to clarify that. I don't think the city can hold a town hall other than to get comments without providing good information, because then we'd have to go back and answer the questions. So I would just really encourage you to consider that approach, and want to honor my tribal councilman who's on the line tonight, James Brown. And this is a council directive. So just wanted to clarify all of that, and perhaps we can work towards a meeting. But after the last public scoping meeting, I think there needs to be some real dialogue and some boundaries established for public meetings. part of the Caltrans protocol is not to be accusatory and to attack. There was a big issue over that a few years ago. So we just want to be careful so that we are not creating more issues, but that we're actually answering questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. I don't think I have anything to add to that. I think that's why we need to, have more time to deliberate and figure out what the right forum is so that everyone's comfortable, people can ask their questions, but we keep it respectful and so on.
And I was at that
Subject matter expert, so.
I was at that last scoping meeting, and I'll tell you that was the least productive time I've ever spent in this role. So whatever we do has to be better than that.
Yeah,
in terms of the way that discussion unfolds, if we do anything.
Yeah. So, and we will check too, there's, in a public meeting, we have some parameters, rules we have to follow, First Amendment rights and that sort of thing. So we are, in all transparency, we will be checking with the city attorney and finding out just exactly what those guidelines will be so that we can try to, kind of keep it. Yeah.
Keep it focused
Keep it
on,
focused.
because, we want to provide information to the community and we need to be respectful of everyone. So.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's it. Jen, we kind of ran through them, I'm sorry, really fast, to the public. Any future agenda items that the public would like to tee up?
I just have a really quick.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Over to
Do you mind coming to the mic? It's so the folks online can hear. So we have one more public comment. Thank you, Doug.
I'm Indra, I live on Berry Road. Regarding the discussion that you were just having about the reentry interchange, I support everything that was just said, and I've heard I haven't been on the pulse of all of these things, but I do feel like pedestrian and bike advocacy and the climate exchange that's happening in here, like, all needs to be part of that discussion, and maybe it is, but I feel like all of the changes that are being talked about are like ones that are going to take a very long time, and our climate is going to evolve in a very quick way, and things that become less dependent on fossil fuels and incorporating that into whatever that plan is makes a lot of sense to me. So that's my comment.
Yeah, good point. Thank you. The intersection of all these different projects and really considering that's important. Other public comments on the future topics? Okay. All right. Then in that case, I think we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.